Hey, welcome everybody to another edition of Chicago Bears News Network. I'm your host, Michael Halatek. I want to start with a special announcement. Um, if you have been a follower of our show, you do know that Misty McMichael has been a frequent guest on our show. Misty asked me to share this with everybody. There is a benefit for Steve, um, uh, benefiting the Mongo McMichael Nursing and Care Fund. It is Monday night. Apparently, there are two Monday night football games this week, much to the dismay of millions of fans. But it's at Joe's Bar on Wood Street in Chicago. So if you don't have any plans for Monday night, or if you're in the area, please stop by and say hello to Misty for me. Tell him Mike Halatek sent you, and yeah, just go and have a great time and help benefit Steve McMichael's fund for his health care and in nursing care. With that, I want to welcome back to the show Paul Wakulinski, known as Bearski Film, known as Paulski. Paul, whatever name you go by, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, you hit it all on the head there. So Paul Wakulinski, and that's usually a hard one for people to pronounce. So yeah, you did a really good job with that. But yeah, that's why it's Paulski for short, and that's why it's Bearski Film, because all my friends just call me Ski my whole life. So I kind of got used to it over time. So yeah, thanks for having me on, man. I'm happy to join you and happy to talk some Bears football in this bye week.
Yeah, it's welcome to the bye week, and I have to tell you, I'm Polish on my father's side. The Halatek name is actually from the same location that Pope John Paul II was from, up in I believe it's the southeast mountainous section of Poland. So Wakulinski was pretty easy for me. I used to get teased all the time when I growing up, and of course, grade school kids can be brutal. And well, wait a minute, your name, what was it, Halatekski? No, it's Halatek. That's exactly the way it came over across the pond.
Yeah, I believe it would be pronounced Hawatek.
Yes, I was just going to say that. You took my thunder away, but God bless you for doing it, because as well as I do, the L is pronounced like a W in Poland. So
yes, sir.
You got two Polskis on the show tonight, and we're going to have a lot of fun talking Bears football. Hey, the Bears are 4-2 as they hit the break. A lot of good things happening in Chicago. They stumbled out of the gate. Obviously, the offense was an absolute no-show in week one. They continued to struggle, especially on the offensive line in week two. In week three, they started to hit some passes. Caleb had over 360 yards passing in week three. He had another 300-yard game. So we've got two 300-yard games. He's on a pace he is actually on a pace to have the third highest total yards passing ever by a Chicago Bears quarterback. Can you tell me who the top two are?
Oh man, in a season?
Yep.
Eric Kramer would be number one, I believe.
You're dead on.
38-38?
38-38 is correct.
Number two, oh man. I'm going to go with Jay Cutler. I don't know the number, though.
Bingo. Jay Cutler. And I think it's 38-13 or something like that. And Caleb's on a pace for over 3,700 yards, despite throwing for less than 100 yards in week one against Tennessee. So it's good to see. And it hasn't just been Caleb, especially in the last 2 weeks. The running game finally got moving, which was great to see.
And not only that, just in general, I talk with my co-host David on my way home from work, and when we were talking today, one of the big things we talked about was complementary football and how this has just been the last 2 weeks have been such a good example of complementary football. I mean, we're clicking on all cylinders on all three phases. It's nice to see a full team effort in effect, and that's why you're getting the scores you're getting. So definitely.
So the Bears are again 4-2 to start the season. They finished the 23 season 4-2 as well. So they're 8-4 over their last 12 games.
Yeah, but I think the big thing here is, and I talked about this at nauseum, how important it is for this team to win 3 games in a row. I mean, for me, that was one of the things. I'm a big critique guy. For me, you really have to earn it week to week. We're looked at sometimes as haters or as negative. We're really not. We're just realists. And this last week we were nothing but positive because the team finally earned it. A lot of things were done the right way. A lot of moves were made. A lot of changes were made, and the result has been very positive. And when they deserve praise, I'll give them praise. But for me, you know, if you want to be taken seriously at all in the playoffs, you have to win 3 playoff games in a row against the best teams in the NFL. You have to be able to do that during the regular season. So I kept saying, Eberflus and his staff, they got to go out there and win 3 games in a row at some point. The sooner the better. And so just for that to happen made me very, very happy, and showed me that this coaching staff is still progressing a little bit. So props to them. Hats off to them.
Ryan Poles, no matter what, there's always going to be a certain segment of Bears Twitter, Bears X, whatever you want to call it nowadays, that are unhappy with what he has done or what he's doing, and they never can get enough offensive linemen. They can never get a defensive end to complement Montez Sweat, but here they are. 8-4, 4-2 in their last to start this season. 8-4 overall in their last 12 games. They have outscored their opponents 71-26 in the last 2 weeks. And of course, you're going to get some idiotic people that say, well, they were bad teams. How many times have you seen the Bears lay an egg when they're playing a team they're supposed to beat?
Way too many times. Way too many times.
And
And yeah, that's what separates the average teams from the good teams. I ask people, well, what's the alternative? Like, would what else would you have wanted? You know what I mean? Do you want a neck and neck win? So then you can say, oh, they faced a bad team and barely beat them. No, we went out there and dominated bad teams. That's what you're supposed to do. I don't see a better alternative. So yeah, I was happy with the result for sure.
talking about domination, let's talk a little bit about the Bears defense for a little bit. Um, they have now held an opponent to 21 points or less, and only one of those, in fact, it's 13 out of 14 games they've held opponents to 21 games or less, and only one of those 13 games did the opponent score 21 points. In fact, that was this year down in Houston, I believe. So just a total dominating performance by this defensive group, despite the fact that Ryan Poles, much to the chagrin of millions of Bears Twitter fans, hasn't found that complementary piece to Montez Sweat on the other side of the line. Although with guys like Gervon Dexter and Austin Tucker or Booker, I'm sorry, and Billings, they've all taken their turns getting into the backfield and pressuring a quarterback, no matter who it is.
And I don't know about you, but that's been the pleasant surprise for me is, obviously there was a big need there. It was very much talked about topic during the offseason. It was definitely one of my three main concerns. Like, I wanted them to even drop back in the draft and take a defensive end and then take an offensive lineman and address the needs more than going after the best player, which is, I mean, it depends on what strategy you want to take. But it's been very, very nice to see Darrell Taylor, who they traded a 6th-round pick for, coming up big in a lot of opportunities. It's been nice to see Austin Booker playing really well. It's been nice to see DeMarcus Walker showing up at times. So it seems like the guys across from Montez Sweat are actually capitalizing on these opportunities. However, I would still say you can't have a good enough defensive line. Like, in my opinion, if you want to be taken seriously and you think you can make a deep playoff run with this team, I would still add something before the trade deadline on the defensive line. I mean, it's just my opinion, but but I wouldn't go out there and trade 2 first-round picks for Myles Garrett or Micah Parsons or Max Crosby. I think, my co-host David brings this up all the time. A guy like Cameron Jordan from the Saints, if you could get him for a 5th or a 4th, that could still be a nice addition to this line. I still think you need to continue that pressure throughout the rest of the season. It makes a huge difference.
You mentioned 2 guys in Max Crosby and Myles Garrett, and of course earlier this week, the Cleveland Browns and the Raiders traded away their number 1 receivers, which might signal, there's a garage sale going on in Cleveland and Las Vegas. So is there a chance that Ryan Poles, I would grant you this. I would say without question that Ryan Poles has talked to the Raiders. He has talked to to Cleveland, and it might just be a look and wait and see as far as what they're looking for to get in return.
Definitely, and that's the key word right there, return, because I don't think you're in a position yet, and Naj is my guy, bear down Naj. I don't think you're in a position yet to sacrifice and gamble that much, that the price that it's going to cost you to get one of those guys, I think might still be a little bit too high. And listen, me and my co-host David, we actually had these conversations, I think preseason. He brought up Micah Parsons to me. It's just as a far-fetched wild idea. Let's just talk about it. And I kept coming back to, I just don't feel this team is at a point where you can gamble 2 first-round picks away for a guy like that. You know who is? The Lions. They came up just short. Now they lost the defensive end. Their window's still open. They might be in a position to make that kind of move. I think we still need to see it first. And if we see it this year, I think we might feel a lot different next year. However, I would not want to sit there and sacrifice the price that it's going to take to get one of those guys. And believe me, I would love Max Crosby on this team. I would love it. But I just don't think, we're still at a point where we need to win the value of the trade instead of giving up more because our window's open. We don't know if it's open yet. And the way this division's playing, it's really hard to tell. So I would, like I said, I would look to make some kind of addition, but I wouldn't want to trade away big draft capital. So
let me throw a question out at you since we kind of skipped ahead to talking about the defense. The Chargers are teetering right now. We don't know what they're going to do, if they're going to make a run, if they're going to start winning, or if they're not going to be a playoff contender. That said, there's a guy on their team that used to play in Chicago by the name of Khalil Mack. What would you think if Ryan Poles brought Khalil Mack back and for let's just throw it out, a Carolina second round pick, which is looking to be the 33rd pick of the draft. What say you about Khalil Mack?
I would say that's too pricey for me. I think now listen, I know they've traded a second round pick in the last 2 years at the trade deadline. Chase Claypool, Montez Sweat. Um I would think you're gambling with a little bit less this year. I'm looking at more of like a third or fourth round pick to send away for a guy. And listen, I love Khalil Mack, and I know most Bears fans do, but he is on the back end of his career. Like I really haven't done too much research into him, to be honest with you, so I can't say definitively how I feel about it because I really I don't know exactly where he's at with his play, but it's a move like that though. But I would still want it for a little bit cheaper. That's why I brought up Cameron Jordan as a name, because even though he's 34, 35 years old, back end of his career, you're really looking at a guy to plug in to see if it helps make more of an impact through the rest of the year. And if it does, then hey, next year we need to draft this position. We definitely need to add some firepower across from Montez Sweat, and really make it worth it. And yeah, a second round pick, a high second round pick, to me, the value of that is just a bit much for a guy that I wouldn't see being here for longer than a year or two. So,
well, when it comes, excuse me, when it comes to draft choices, the Bears, I think, made the right move with 1-1 overall when they drafted Caleb Williams. He got off to a slow start, and there's been a lot of talk in Bears Twitter and in social media about Jaden Daniels in Washington and how quick of a start he got off to versus how slow of a start Caleb got off to. But let's just take a look at what Caleb has done, because he's basically improved every week. This is just passer rating from week to week so far this season. Week 1, he was a 55.7. Week 2, it was actually worse at a 51.0. But that was against Houston. And that was also a game where the offensive line, I think, couldn't find their rear end with both hands in that game. Then all of a sudden, a big jump in week 3. He went from a 51 to an 80.8. And then the last 3 weeks, 108. I'm sorry, 106. I don't have my reading glasses on. 106.6, 126.2, and 124.4. Yeah, I know where they're at. There's a long story about my eyesight, which I won't get into, but I've been having some problems for about the last 13 months with something that cropped up in my right eye, and I literally have blind spots.
Oh, sorry to hear that,
in my right eye. Yeah, it's just the nuttiest thing, and I was fine. And then all of a sudden this cropped up, and I've been to an optometrist. I've been to a glaucoma specialist. I've been to a retina specialist. I've seen an optic nerve specialist, and they can't tell me what the problem is, which kind of is depressing to put it short. But anyway, I was trying to, so I'm doing one of these without putting my reading glasses on. But Caleb Williams has been the man, especially over the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, and so I kept talking about, a lot of people predicted him to throw over 4,000 yards. I wasn't that high on his rookie year, even though he was projected to be, one of the best prospects that we've seen in a very, very long time. There's still quarterback growth that needs to take place, and I actually didn't think it would go this quickly. And I'm very surprised and satisfied with his ability to grow. And it's more than just the numbers, Michael. It's more than just that quarterback rating. It's the eye test. I mean, that was my big thing for this year is the eye test. He is calling out blitzers. He's walking up to the line, pointing at the guys when the ball's hiked. Those are the guys coming. So he's right about who he's calling out to. He's man, he's in control of that offense. It seems like the last couple of weeks, and very comfortable in just feeling pressure in the pocket, knowing where to step, how to step, if it's step forward, step left, step right. Good choices when it comes to throwing the ball away, just not taking stupid chances, not trying to be desperate or, a lot of these mistakes that rookies make. And it's so nice to see it this early on, in my opinion. And, you mentioned Jaden Daniels, and one thing I always live by is someone else's success is not my failure, right? So, like, hats off to him. Good. I hope it lasts for him. I don't think it will. I think he's going to kind of come back down to earth a little bit. And, let me remind you, Nick Foles' first year starting, he had 28 touchdowns and like 4 interceptions.
Mm-hmm.
And Peyton
You're
Manning's first year, he had 28 interceptions. Right? So the start is great. Like Mitch Trubisky won how many games his first year?
Well, they were 11-5. I think that was last year before the 17 game season.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. It's not about the instant success. That's nice. That's fine and dandy. I'm looking at it as more of a long-term thing and more of a progress thing. And Caleb has definitely shown that growth at a very high rate. And Naj and chat, but I like high tempo. I like the high tempo too. They've had a lot of success with it. And like I said, there's just a lot of control and a lot of comfort, it seems like, coming from Caleb at the quarterback position. And I really enjoy seeing that. That's something different. Beyond his physical gifts, mentally, he's capable of handling everything that comes with that position. And it's a lot. It really is. So, yeah, I think, that's why I'm so happy. We really got a good one here, guys. Like, we really got a good one. And that's why it was worth going through that civil war of, Justin Fields or this or in the Hall or Caleb Williams or this and that. Because long-term, the result is going to be so much better with this kid under center for us. It's something we have not really experienced as Bears fans. I mean, at least I haven't in my lifetime watching Bears football, but there was an interesting stat that popped up. 4 touchdowns, 75% completion, 225 yards. Only 2 quarterbacks ever do it. Caleb Williams, and the other one was Cade McNown in 1999.
Yeah.
So it's just funny that has to exist, like that example of this success that we just witnessed. But we know long-term it failed. Like, why does that have to live in my brain, Michael? That's part of the poison of being a Bears fan, I guess. But I truly believe that this is going in the right direction. And yeah, he's going to continue to improve. I talked about all offseason about how we need the floor at the quarterback position to be higher. That was my issue with Fields, is that the inconsistency game to game. And I just thought that the floor with him should have been higher than it was. This kid's floor is pretty damn high right now. Like, I can't see him having like 100-yard 2 interception game. Like, at minimum, he's getting some production here. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Couple of things. Number one, you know that Kate's going to live rent free in your mind for a long time when that graphic became available. So that's one thing. And not
lucky
just,
for me, I was very young, very, very, very young when that happened. So I wasn't all bought into that yet. So although it does, yeah, it's.
Dude, I was 8 years old the last time the Bears led the league in passing offense, and that was in 1965 with Rudy Bukic was the quarterback. So
insane.
Yeah, it is absolutely crazy. There are 3 things that have really impressed me with Caleb Williams so far. and you already mentioned the first one, that he's getting up there and he's calling out the protections and the blitzers. The second thing is how quickly he goes through his progressions. He's 1, 2, 3, boom, the ball is gone. And the third thing is when he knows where he wants to go with the ball, the way he's able to look off the safeties to leave an opening for that ball. That pass to Keenan Allen is a perfect example. The touchdown that he had to Keenan Allen in London last week, where he looked the safety off and just hit a back shoulder bullet to Keenan Allen in the end zone. We haven't seen throws like that since probably Eric Kramer in 1995. So it is good. Just it's a joy to watch Caleb. It's a shame we have to miss him this week because of the bye. But there's some really good games to watch this week, which we'll get into in a little bit.
But Michael, stuff like that, though, stuff like that you mentioned,
yeah.
Regardless of being a Bears fan, like I'm a big NFL fan. This is huge compared to the rest of the NFL. You usually don't get this type of stuff in the first year. It takes some time. Even Patrick Mahomes said when he won his first Super Bowl, he still didn't know how to read defenses. But that team was stacked. It was ready to go. He had good coaching, and, he just made a lot of plays. But, yeah, this kid is, like I said, that's why I'm so impressed with the progression he's making, because he's doing stuff that, legitimate quarterbacks that have been in the league for a couple of years finally start doing. And, yeah, it's really, really, really nice.
It is. Nudge, I don't know. You were 1 year old when what? We were talking about 1995?
Yeah, no, when they were leading the league in offense.
1965.
Yeah.
I was 8 years old. In fact, the Bears played the Rams at Wrigley Field in 1965. And I was at that game with my dad. And it's the first game I remember going to. I know I went to at least one or two prior to that, but that was back in that was back all the way back at Wrigley Field, Paul. That's how far that dates back, and it's hard to believe that the Bears played their first 50 of the first 51 years. The Bears played home games at Wrigley Field. They played down in Decatur, although they had several games up in Chicago that first year because the simple fact that they could get more fans than the little stadium they had down in Decatur. And I was at the very last game the Bears ever played at Wrigley Field in December of 1970, which I would guess that would make the Notch 6 when that happened. And the Bears defeated those Green Bay Packers 35-17. And I love talking about that on my show because I just love to rub that in. But
long time ago
show because you got a time limit here.
Yeah. So. I just want to mention though, my friend's father, one of my best friends, he's had season tickets since he was a kid. So since the 60s, their grandfather had season tickets. So he would tell me all the time about Wrigley Field, corner of the end zone, not being there. And all those great moments that, he saw them in early on in those days. So yeah, I love hearing those stories.
It's fun. Last week, my show was a week ago Friday. It was October 11th, and I literally started the show off dedicating it to my father because my father had season tickets. I inherited the season tickets when he passed away. October 11th of 1972, was when my father passed away. So I dedicated last week's show to my father because without his guidance in his love of all things Chicago, especially the Chicago Bears, I probably would not be the fan of the Bears that I am today. So love you, Dad. I hope you're watching. DeAndre Swift, his growth. I don't know if it was Shane Waldron not devising a proper game plan to utilize Swift's strengths, but he really has come to life in the last 2 or 3 weeks, just as this offense started to kick it into gear.
Yeah, sorry, I'm like sitting low. Get rid of the comment because it's blocking my face. I don't want to talk like. There we go. What up? But oh yeah, there we go. Okay, DeAndre Swift.
Yeah, maybe I'll try to do this.
There we go. Yeah, that's nice.
Then we can see what the Naj is saying.
Perfect.
He's a one man band out there in contact land today.
Yes, sir. But like I said, the Naj is my guy, man. He's a good dude, big fan, and love all of his comments and all of his takes. Huge Bears fan. With DeAndre Swift, I think it was only a matter of time before he got going a little bit. The screens have really done him well, and the ability to sell those screens by Caleb have also really helped him progress. But yeah, this offensive line was in shambles early on, so I think them getting it together helped DeAndre Swift out a lot.
You know, it's two things happened with offensive linemen that really helped create a spark in the running game. And that's when they moved Bill Murray, of all people, Bill Murray into the lineup, and then moved Doug Kramer into the backfield to be the lead blocker on short yardage situations.
Yeah, there definitely needed a change to be made because I'm not a fan of Nate Davis at all. At all. And
yeah, you made that perfectly clear on the last time you were on my show.
I'm sure I did. I started a show on our channel once and right away hit play live and I was just like F Nate Davis. Like that's how I started that one. But yeah, effort alone from that guy and from Pryor has just been a huge difference in this offensive line. And we're still thin there, though. We still really are. So, I made the case for trying to trade Nate Davis away. We're still probably better keeping him because we're just so thin at depth in that position. But yeah, they've played a lot better, and it's shown in the passing game and in the run game. So, yeah, I was never too worried about DeAndre Swift. I know some people were, but to me, I always figured he would get his, and yeah, the last couple of weeks he's been showing up, and I think, like I said earlier, complimentary football. When you're doing good in the passing game, well, then the run game opens up a little bit more too. But it's the dedication to the run that I think has been very impressive. I was very critical of Shane Waldron, just the coaching staff in general. It's still probably one of my biggest worries, but I will give credit when credit's due. They made changes and they adapted in order, to have more success, and they've had more success because of it. So the fact that Shane Waldron was willing to listen to his players, start scripting a game plan before games, those things have made a lot of difference, and that shows, that there's a good head screwed on that guy's shoulders. So I'm hoping that the success continues. But yeah, DeAndre Swift has definitely been a big, big part of why this offense has been able to click and have the productivity that it does.
Yeah, absolutely. We are joined by Paul Wakulinski from the Bearski Films channel on YouTube. He puts together some absolutely great video content. Please check him out. Before we go any further, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about our sponsors for a little bit. The first one is TickSplits.com. Every every ticket, every venue, everywhere. No service fees, guaranteed seats, guaranteed emotions. If you want to waste your money on service fees, go to Ticketmaster, go to SeatGeek, go to StubHub. But if you want to you get a better seat, a little bit closer to the action for the same amount of money, go to ticksplits.com and get your seats with no service fees. Super Patch. Go to AAA.superpatch.com. They have drug-free alternatives to help you with balance and energy, to recover from workouts, to uh, pain relief, helping with your sleep. The Kansas City Chiefs use Super Patch in their clubhouse because there is no drugs, so they don't have to worry about their players having to sit for a few weeks because of suspensions for putting something in their body that doesn't belong. And then we have Prince. That's PRINTZZZ, Prince.printify.me. You can see that shirt. That is the first time that Romo Dunze from Draft Night, Rome and Caleb Williams did the claw, and that is on one of their shirts. This Bears thermos. It's kind of like those Yetis, but it's not a Yeti, but it does do a great job. That's there. There's a lot of Bears stuff on prince.printify.me. The prices are amazing, and we're proud to say they're one of our favorite sponsors. So give our sponsors a shout and take a look. And special thing to Naj. Naj, I appreciate you being out there today. And I got to tell you, I know you're probably watching on Paul's stream, but if you get a chance, go over to my stream and subscribe to my channel as well, because I don't think Paul's videos and my videos are ever live at the same time. So I'd appreciate it if you'd give us a subscription and hit that like button, because it's important for, as Paul well also knows, hitting that like button is really important to YouTube's algorithm, so more people can see our podcast. So welcome back, Paul. It's been a pleasure having you on. We've got a couple more things we can talk about before, I know I'm a little bit under the gun to get you out of here on time to make sure
I think we're doing good. I think we're doing good. Yeah, I got like a half hour more before I need to take care of her and whatnot. And I just want to talk about her real quick. You know, she's 2 years old, and from the day we brought her home, her first TV time was Bears.
Awesome.
She sits there and goes, Dada football, because she knows that Dada likes to watch football. And, you know, we have all these little dresses for her, and she's such a smart kid. And everybody tells me how smart she is. And I'm like, yeah, I just worry about messing her up. And they're like, what do you mean? I was like, I'm making her a Bears fan. It's like the only thing I can think of that could really like destroy this child's mentality, because it's been rough for us. It really has been rough. And for guys like you, Michael, that have been a Bears fan a lot longer than I have, it's been very rough. And so it's like I said, it's just so nice seeing this success now. And I truly feel this is real. I wanted to mention too that, you know, I was at the Mitch Trubisky Tampa Bay game where he threw 6 touchdowns.
I was at that game.
Yeah, you were at that game too? Yeah, I was there too. So it felt great. It felt great seeing that kind of offensive production. But like on my way home, I remember thinking like, I kind of need to watch this tape again. And after I watched it, I was like, okay, well, we kind of got lucky on this one. It just didn't feel very real to me. I was like, is this inflated joy? Is this repeatable? Like, has Mitch Trubisky hit another level? And the answer was no. he didn't. We had a good game with him. Whereas when I look at this game with Caleb, or these last 2 weeks with Caleb, this is real growth. This is real quarterback play. I have a lot of confidence in saying, man, this kid, he's gonna, yeah. If there was ever a time to be all in on the Bears again, like this fan base has done over and over and over and over, guys, I think we actually will have it this time. I really do.
There's so much that can happen, good and bad. So we just want to keep our fingers crossed that we've finally gotten rid of I guess the last really great quarterback we had since Sid Luckman was actually Johnny Lujack in the 50s, but all of a sudden he was gone in an instant, and we've had as many John Hewarts as we have. We've had far more John Hewarts and Happy Hank Burris and all these other Moses Moreno, and I could go on and on and on. And I got to tell you, Jimmy McMahon wasn't a great quarterback, but he was an excellent field general, and he had the respect of everybody in that not just the offense, Paul, but everybody in the locker room. He had the absolute respect. And this guy, he got wrecked on the football field. He lacerated a kidney in '84. He separated his shoulder in was it '87? I believe it was '87 when the Green Bay Packer that will forever remain nameless throw him to the ground after a Green Bay intercepted one of his passes and dislocated his throwing shoulder, and he was never the same thereafter. So, we had Jay Cutler, but Jay Cutler had, he had a little bit of wide receiver help, but he did have he had Elshon and Brandon Marshall for a year or two, but
under Mark Trestman.
So many years before that, he had nothing. He had Devin Hester and Johnny Knox,
and still took us to an NFC championship.
So
I'll give credit where credit's due. Jay Cutler still gave us a shot.
He did. He was a great quarterback, and he got nothing but disrespect, especially from Bears fans. I don't know if you paid attention to the 2011 season, but the Bears were just hitting their stride, and they were just absolutely hitting on all cylinders. They beat, I want to say it was San Diego in Chicago, and all of a sudden, after the game, news came out that Jay Cutler fractured his thumb.
Michael, this is the only team I follow. So I remember that very well. I remember where I was at. I made an ass of myself at my girlfriend's family's house when Cutler ran down that pick six. I was like, what are you doing? You have the game won anyway, this and that, just screaming at the TV. And yeah, he broke his thumb. We were 7-3, and we wound up going 9-7 that year, I believe. We went 2-6 the rest of the way, if I'm correct, missing the playoffs.
And they never made it back. It's
an argument I have with my friend all the time, where it drove me nuts. Second game of the season, Jay Cutler rushes out of the pocket and drops his shoulders to try and bulldoze a safety. It's like, dude, you're the quarterback. Just slide. We're paying 5 guys to protect you, and in week 2, you're gonna go out and just try and powerhouse someone. And my buddy was always like, yeah, but he's a football player. Football players are gonna play football. And I go, I get it, but then you take a look at a guy like Russell Wilson, who's undersized, played 9 years in a row without an injury. You know why? Because he's safe. Another little thing I took away from this game that I absolutely loved was Caleb rushed. They were backed up against their end zone, and he got out of the pocket and rushed and just slid at the 50-yard line right at the logo. without taking any kind of hit, without letting a defender get even close to him. Thigh and Smy, yes, this is live. But yeah, that's one of those little things to me where it's like your health is going to determine your longevity in this league. And it adds up. Don't be tougher than the rest of the NFL, you know what I mean? And so just seeing him slide and take the positive yards, take the big positive yards, and still stay absolutely safe. To me, it's like that's one of those things that, like I said, this is why this kid's going to be on another level, because in my lifetime of watching the Bears, Jay Cutler was the best quarterback we've had.
Oh, by
But
far.
but there was still this like dumb meathead attitude to him where no, this kid doesn't have it. He checks a lot of boxes, man. I'm so excited.
I can't wait to see how Caleb blossoms in this league. And it's, you know, when it starts, Paul, it starts week 11. It really does. The Bears
Couldn't agree
host
more.
the Bears host Green Bay in week 11. I would not be surprised if that game gets flexed from its noon start time, especially if Green Bay continues to win. And if Chicago, like we talked about earlier in the show, does win 2 of their next 3 games, they've got, obviously the Commanders is a winnable game. There is no game on the schedule that's not winnable before they hit the last 8 games of the season. They've got the Commanders in Washington. They've got Arizona out in Phoenix, and then they play host to the Patriots. That's Green Bay's bye week in week 10. And then the Green Bay Packers come to Chicago to meet the Bears in week 11. And who knows, by that time, they could be playing for first place in the division. So let's talk about the division because there's only 2 games this week because Detroit and Minnesota play each other. So let's talk about that game. Detroit heads to Minnesota, down Aiden Hutchinson. You've got an a highly unlikely undefeated team in the Minnesota Vikings, whose defense has been playing lights out. And, when JJ McCarthy was lost for the season, everybody was going to say, okay, well, they'll be fighting for the top draft choice, let alone, last in the division. And here they are, 5-0, undefeated. I believe they're coming off a bye week. So they're going to be absolutely ready for Detroit. And, Detroit, they've got a quarterback that has been setting records. I don't think he's had the 2 highest, the combined passer rating from his last 2 weeks is like one in the 140s. He had a perfect passer rating 2 weeks ago when he was 18 for 18, never threw an incompletion the entire game. So this is going to be one hell of a game to watch. What are you thinking?
It definitely is. I don't believe in the Vikings. I really don't. I don't even believe that they're 5-0, even though they are. And I said it during the offseason. When we were making our predictions, I go, well, for us to be good, somebody else has to suck. And so I had the Minnesota Vikings at the bottom of this division, and look, they're at the top. Isn't it maddening, Michael? Isn't it absolutely maddening that we finally have some things going right, going well in our direction? We're 4-2, and yet somehow we're 4th in the division. Like, what are the chances of that happening? Us actually finally making progress and taking steps forward, and still just not doing it in the division. So yeah, like you said, the real test here is going to be week 11 for sure. My big thing for this year was beat the Packers twice. You want to preach change? That's fine. Let's see the change. Go out there and beat the one team you haven't been able to beat. We've been able to play really well against the Vikings. We've been able to play really well against the Lions. Neither of those teams really scare me all that much just because of our history against them. What does scare me is the damn Green Bay Packers because of our history against them. And so I think that would be huge, especially when they have a bye week to prepare for you. If you still go out there and win that game, oh, that sets a big, big tone. But I do think the Lions will take care of the Vikings because they are the better team overall. I think the Vikings have been riding a hot streak and good for them. Michael, I want to ask you.
Lost your audio.
Last, I don't know. Did I cut off there for a second? Sorry.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, something's up with my internet.
Yeah,
but,
you said I want to ask you a question,
yeah.
and then the rest was in.
Okay, so since 1990, there's been 6 teams that have gone 5-0 and then missed the playoffs. One of those teams has actually done it twice. Do you know who that team is?
I don't.
It's the Minnesota Vikings.
It's not the Bears.
it's the Minnesota Vikings.
That's amazing.
In the last 35 years, they've actually done it twice where they went 5-0 and missed the playoffs. Let's make it a third time. You know what I mean? That's where I'm at. Like, they've been able to fumble this before. Let them fumble it again. And so I think they're going to come back down to earth a little bit. I think the Lions are still the Lions. I think they're a legitimate team. But for me, the Packers matchup and the wins against the Packers are the most meaningful. Whether we make the playoffs this year or not, whatever our record is at the end of the year, if we can beat them twice even, I would be so satisfied going into next year knowing that we have a legitimate shot against any team in this division because our recent history would agree with that. So, yeah, week 11 is going to be a big week. And like you mentioned early in the show, just kind of these next couple of games going 2-1, if we can beef up our record a little bit before we start, all these divisional games, it would do nothing but help us. But those divisional games are what's going to dictate everything for me about this team.
So the Bears finished playing all 6 of their divisional opponents in the last 8 games of the season. And the only 2 other games, they play NFC West teams. They play at San Francisco, and they play a Thursday night game against Seattle here in Chicago. So, Seattle has proven to be a winnable game. San Francisco has proven to now be a winnable game. The Bears owned Detroit last year, except for the last 3 minutes of the game in Detroit, and even that was a winnable game. If Tyler Scott catches Justin Fields' pass instead of having to punt away, that game's over. If that happens, Minnesota, they had to come from behind. That was Justin Fields' third and last come from behind game-winning drive as a Chicago Bear. And even the last game of the year, when they went up to Green Bay, the defense held that Green Bay offense to 20 points, but they couldn't do a damn thing on offense. Well, that's not going to be the case this year, Paul. They've got an offense that can compete with Green Bay, especially because Green Bay's defense isn't as good as Chicago's defense is. So one of the things that the Bears can do starting in week 11 is keep the ball away from Green Bay, dominate the time of possession, and make sure they score when they have the opportunity to do so.
And Michael, that's actually what they did to us in the last game of the season. Putting all these highlight videos together and everything like that, for me, the first thing is, okay, how many drives are there? Like, how much content do I have to pull, right? And usually on offense, between 8 to 12 drives, right? Like those games where we get multiple turnovers on defense, we'll get 10, 12 drives. A typical game is 8 drives. That last game against Green Bay, they gave us 6 drives. 6 offensive drives. They said, here you go, Justin Fields, make the most of it. And he couldn't. Right. So they did exactly that to us. And I feel better about the Green Bay matchups being more of a 50-50 toss-up game than I ever have before in the last 5 years. And I think that's huge. Yeah, with the Vikings game, you mentioned Fields making a last quarter drive. It was really one pass to DJ Moore, and it was kind of a sloppy pass more on DJ Moore that he caught it that really set him up. But that was a 12-9 game, field goals only. But that's what I mean. Our defense has shown it's been able to keep Minnesota in check before, but that was also different quarterbacks. And so Sam Darnold is playing well. He's not a guy that is not talented. I mean, he was picked for, what was he, your first overall pick? He might have been.
Who?
Sam Darnold.
He was a first round pick. He wasn't first overall.
Okay, so but still a high first round pick. And so you look at a guy like that finally having success. It's kind of like Baker Mayfield in Tampa Bay. Like maybe it's just finally clicking. He's in a good situation. There's talent around him. That's great. No, I just do think it catches up with him. Same thing with Jared Goff. Like we made him throw 4 interceptions one game. He was doing just fine that whole season until he faced the Bears.
Yeah, the Bears definitely had Jared Goff's number last year, no doubt about it.
And so why wouldn't we have it this year still? So that's what I mean. The Lions don't scare me as much. I think the Vikings are going to come back down to earth. For me, it's all about Green Bay. I want to go out and beat the damn Packers, Michael. I know it sounds stupid. It sounds meathead-ish. It means something to me. Let's turn the page here and start a new chapter. I don't know. I think it's important.
Twice since 2001, the Bears won their division, and Green Bay won their division a few years later. And I think they both finished with 13-3 records that year. The year the Bears won the division, which I believe was 2001, it was the last year of the NFC Central before Houston came into the league, and they went to 4 divisions per conference, and they kicked out Tampa and sent Tampa to the South. The Bears were 13-3 that year, and Green Bay beat them twice. And then there was a few years later, where the Green Bay Packers finished 13-3, and Chicago beat Green Bay twice. So you throw all the records out the window when the Bears and Packers play. The Bears have to do 4-2 in the division if they're going to be contenders for the postseason. So
I agree.
So if they can sweep Detroit and split Minnesota and split Green Bay, I'd be a real happy man.
See, and I had the same prediction, just split Vikings, split Lions, sweep Green Bay. That's what would make me the happiest. There's no doubt. I can't even tell you. I can go back and look. It would take a few minutes to look it up. But we don't have enough time on tonight's show. When the last time the Bears swept the Packers in a season series? It's been terrible long. The only thing that was, there's been 2 really fun victories against Green Bay in the last 10 years. The first one, or the last one, I should say, was in 2018 when they beat the Packers, that clinched the NFC North title in Nagy's first year. The other one was a Thanksgiving night game where they were honoring Brett Favre and adding his name to the Ring of Honor at Lambeau Field, and the Bears went in and spoiled their party, much like the night back in the 90s when the Bears were honoring both Gale Sayers and Dick Butkus on a Monday night, and Green Bay came in and spoiled that party. I believe that was the game where the Bears were wearing those
god awful throwback uniforms, and Green Bay, looked like pumpkins on their heads because it was just a yellow helmet with no letters on it. And it was a windier than hell and rainier than hell game at Soldier Field. So it happens.
Real
Looks
quick,
like
Michael, I just want to address Thigh and Smy's comment. He
who?
said, Thigh and Smy, he says, I disagree with 4-2 being a requirement. And he says Bears could go 2-4 in the division and get get to 10
Oh,
wins in other ways.
I'm seeing it.
Yeah. So the difference there is I'm not trying to get lucky. Like Thigh and Smy is right. They could go 2-4 in the division and still get 10 wins and still make the playoffs. That's not reaching my expectation.
Right.
I
don't
my
want them to make the
expectation is
playoffs. I want them to win the
control.
division.
Correct. It's control over this damn division. It's taking the NFC North and not giving it back. It's setting a tone and making a statement. And in order to do that, you have to sweep the Packers twice. And like you said, at least split with the other two teams. If you do that, I don't care what your record is at the end of the year. I don't care if you miss the playoffs. If you do that, you are setting a tone here for the future moving forward that you're going to get this thing done. And that's kind of where I'm at. And like I said, it's part of the eye test to me. And even though that's not an eye test, it's still one of those like situational things that I feel this team needs to overcome in order for them preaching change to become a reality, to actually change. So I'm not just trying to get lucky here and squeak into the playoffs, even though that would still be nice and it still comes with its benefits. My expectations are much higher than that. I want this thing to be real, and I want it to be real moving forward. I mean, I'm such like a Super Bowl or bust guy that for me, every team has been failing except for the Kansas City Chiefs. So it's kind of hard, but I'm not expecting a division win at 12 wins. In fact, I predicted them at 9-8 with us sweeping the Packers twice and splitting the division. And I have a whole episode where we did that. However, I'm off a little bit because they snuck out a win last week. I thought they'd be 3-3 right now. They're 4-2. So if I was to adjust my prediction accurately, I guess I'd have them at 10-7 right now. But still, like I said, I want control over the North. I don't care about this year necessarily. I think the next 3 years are going to be really, really, really enjoyable for every single Bears fan.
It'll be fun. And real quick, even before this season began, and I am an eternal optimist when it comes to the Bears. There's a couple of first of all, I predicted an 11-win season for the Bears. And if you take a look at what we have been talking about the entire show, they're 4-2 now. If they go 2-1 against their next 3 games, that puts them at 6-3. If they go 4-2 against the NFC North, that puts them at 10 wins. All they have to do is split San Francisco and Seattle, and there's my prediction of 11-6. Why did I pick 11-6? Because they won 7 games with Justin Fields as their quarterback last year, and their defense is rolling on all cylinders, and they didn't start doing that until halfway through the season last year. So that's why I'm thinking that the Bears can do at least 11 wins this year, and not just make the playoffs, but win the division and start this roll to dominating the North. I don't know who put it out there, but because these comments are coming in fast and furious. So I wanna thank.
Got to put those reading glasses on, Michael.
I gotta. So bear with, because it was the Nudge, and that was it. And then Thigh and Smy came in, and then Robert Lee came in, and
No,
Dennis Moody came in. It's been, this has been one of the most active chat rooms that I've had on my show for at least a couple of weeks. So I want to thank everybody who has participated. Paul has got to get out of here because he's got some family stuff that he's got to get to. I really want to thank you, Paul, for being on the show. It's always a great time when you're on the show. I want to thank everybody that I just mentioned in the chat room for making this a great night. Please make sure if you're not subscribed to the Bearski Film channel on YouTube, make sure you click on that and subscribe to his channel. And please subscribe to my channel, the Chicago Bears News Network, and make sure you hit that like button so the algorithms get our shows out to more Chicago Bears fans. With that, any last words, Paul?
Yeah, just my appreciation for you, Michael. Thanks again for having me on. Thanks again for helping my channel get guests like Jacob Infante on. And yeah, it's a funny comment. But yeah, I really appreciate you, and I love talking football. I love spending time with you. And yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for everybody in the chat that participated. And bear down, everybody. If we can do what you said, Michael, and go 2-1 in these next 3 weeks. Oh man, is that going to be fun or what? Even just this next week matchup against Washington. If we got a 5-2 football team, guys, we're in it. We're rocking and rolling. So appreciate everybody, and yeah, sub to Michael's channel. He's a good dude. He's got consistent shows every week, and thank you, everybody. Bear down.
Next week's guest on the show is Brendan Shagru. So make sure you tune in. The show next week to fit Brendan's schedule will be Thursday night at 7 o'clock instead of our normal Friday night slot. So with that, it is 8:06. I got you out in 4 minutes to spare.
Appreciate you. Bear down, everybody.
Have a great night, Paul. Appreciate you being on. And again, that's Paul Wakulinski, Bearski Films. Again, Thigh and Smy and the Nodge and Robert, everybody who has made this an extremely lively chat session tonight. I really appreciate it. I want to thank you for your kind words. And Thigh and Smy, don't worry about spamming the chat. The more that we get people to participate, the better the show is. So thank you very much for everybody. And the Nodge, you know what? I didn't know that. So that's a great way to end the show. You put a smile on my face. So thank you, everybody. I hope you have a great night. Bear down. Hopefully you'll be with us next Thursday when the Bears, when Brendan Shagru is my guest, and we talk about what to expect with the Bears playing in Washington. That game, by the way, has, if you don't know already, that game was scheduled to be a noon start, and it is now the main late afternoon spot for, I believe, Fox. It will start at 3:25. So good luck, everybody. Enjoy this weekend's games. There are some good ones. Like I mentioned before, Houston travels to Green Bay. Detroit travels to Minnesota. And if that's not enough, there is the Super Bowl rematch from last year. San Francisco is playing the Kansas City Chiefs. With that, have a great night, everybody. I'm going to leave Roberts up there. Bear down, guys. It has been an honor hosting this show tonight. I hope you'll tune in next Thursday for the Bears News Network channel and our special guest, Brendan Shagru. Good night, everybody.